Today is July 19, 2023. My name is Rob Carr of Kalamazoo Right to Life, and this is Pro-Life Week. Well, a few things on today's program. First, today is the 175th anniversary of the Seneca Falls Conference. So you might be asking, so what is the Seneca Falls Conference? Well, on July 19, 1848, prominent women associated with the emerging women's rights movement, met in Seneca Falls, New York. Among them, Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and Lucretia Mott, and several other women came together to promote, advance, articulate the cause for women's rights. This is a pre-Civil War meeting, and actually, truth be told, a lot of what the women were first articulating in 1848 was an anti-slavery policy. They were joining the abolitionist movement in fighting slavery. You know, these women were all very anti-slavery, and for the next several years worked in tandem with the abolitionists to fight against slavery in the South. And then when that ended, then they moved back into their main purpose, which was to advance women's rights, the right to vote, things like that. Well, Nancy Pelosi wrote a op-ed in the for the MSNBC's website, celebrating this 175th anniversary, praised the leaders of the women's movement, and by extension praised the feminist movement of the 20th century and now the 21st century. In all of the great advances that the women have made, equal pay for equal rights, to own property, to vote, reproductive rights, of course, so that goes without saying. And in regarding reproductive rights, Pelosi made a comment about the Dobbs decision. Quote, "The monstrous decision overturning Roe v. Wade ripped away long-held rights and unleashed a flood of draconian policies denying access to the full spectrum of reproductive care, even life-threatening circumstances." Unquote. Well, if Pelosi had done her homework, she would find out very, very quickly and quite easily that all the women she mentions in her little article, Susan B. Anthony, Stanton, Lucretia Mott, Alice Paul, and one person she didn't mention, that I will, Victoria Woodhull. She was a radical feminist in the latter part of the 19th century. She actually ran for president in 1872. So, or did she run as vice president? Well, actually, I'm not sure now. But she was way ahead of her time, Victoria Woodhull. All of these women, all of them, including Alice Paul, who was the leader of the movement to get the franchise, the right to vote during the World War I era, in 1920. All of these women were against abortion. They supported pro-life laws that were on the books in America throughout all of the 19th century and 2/3 of the 20th century. It's just a fact. Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Alice Paul, Victoria Woodhull opposed any changes in abortion laws because they recognized that abortion harmed women and killed unborn children who were considered human beings. So come on, Nancy, wake up, read your history. The women you're celebrating would have been on my side, would have been pro-life, because they knew that the baby was a human being. Okay. Second item. In the last few weeks, the Iowa legislature, and I'm sure most of this is stuff that you already know, the Iowa legislature passed a 6-week heartbeat bill, And the vote in the legislature was 56-34 in the state house and 32-17 in the state senate. Governor Kim Reynolds signed the bill into law, and everything was great. And then all of a sudden, the county judge stepped in and imposed a temporary injunction blocking enforcement of this law. And I know the Governor Reynolds has appealed to a higher court to have that injunction lifted so this law can take effect. And, I do find it interesting that, you think about the Dobbs decision. The state of Mississippi passed a law that basically said that you cannot have an abortion after the 15th week of pregnancy, as opposed to 24 weeks with viability. So you had a real challenge to the viability law established in Roe v. Wade. The Supreme Court agreed with Mississippi that you can pass legislation to ban abortions after 15 weeks. They also said that we're giving the right to establish abortion policy back to the states, period. And the local state governments can decide how they want to govern abortion policy. So very liberal laws like New York and California, very conservative laws like Arkansas and Oklahoma and some others. So that's where it stands. So Iowa was going to pass a new law, a heartbeat law that other states have passed. And this judge should have been reading the Dobbs decision, because the state legislatures have this authority now based on Dobbs. So I do think that a higher court judge or another court will overrule this lower court judge. Okay, last item. There is a congresswoman from Missouri, Cori Bush, a very liberal Democrat, and she was defending chemical abortion. And then she was talking about different scenarios, different types of women who really need these pills, these abortion pills. They really need it. And then she said, because these are real stories, these scenarios. These are real people that need that need the right to kill their babies. They're real people, real stories. And, I find that quite tragic that she would say something like that, because when the baby is aborted, that's also a real story. When that baby is killed by an abortion, surgical or chemical, that's a human being. That's a real person who has died. True, that baby may be small, maybe really small, but it still has the DNA of a human being. And it still is the product of a human father and a human mother. If you have two humans creating a child, the child is human because the parents are human. And so I would just challenge Representative Bush to think long and hard about that statement, because true, the women who want abortions, yeah, those are real people. Those are real stories. That's true. But the babies who are being murdered in the womb, those are real stories, tragic stories, the taking of a human life. And those are real people. Unborn babies are real people. They're real humans, members of the human family. With that, I'll let you go, and I will see you next time.